Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. It sounds like our OP's brother knew his job was important and the manager was being ridiculous because the manager didn't understand their importance. If a room, surgical room, etc. isn't clean, that's going to possibly cause an infection. I respect the hell out of environmental services at our hospitals. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. You have to call me every time you leave this hallway. My brother shared a story with me the other day, and I was laughing so hard that I was crying. I figured I'd pass it on to you beautiful people on Reddit. My brother used to work in environmental services in a rather large hospital. For those of you not fluent in corporate bullcrap, that means he was a janitor. His had a lot of cleaning duties that took him all over the hospital each day. However, each person was assigned a hallway that they had to maintain during the shift. My brother did not have an issue with this and did all of his work as assigned. At this particular job, he often bumped heads with management, but in fairness, the way he describes it, he was working for a bunch of idiots. I obviously can't comment on this, but in the time I've known my brother, he's always been an incredibly hard worker and does what he can to provide for his children. So I give him the benefit of the doubt and assume management was just being stupid. On one particular day, the management tried to implement a new rule. All staff members were now supposed to call the boss whenever they left their designated hallway. The boss man, Joe, just wanted a quick notification. I'm sure the reason for this rule made sense at the time, but it's one of those things that's just so stupid no one ever did it. That didn't prevent the boss from trying to enforce the stupid rule, though. He harassed everyone, my brother included, all the time about leaving their workspace without notifying him. One day, he was really going after my brother hard until finally my brother had enough. He decided that it was best to follow the rule. The very next day, he began. At the start of his shift, he called his boss, "Hey Joe, I'm going to my hallway now." A few minutes later, my brother realized he didn't have enough supplies on his cart, and the required supplies were in the closet 10 feet outside the area he'd been assigned. So he called his boss again, "Hey Joe, I need to leave my hallway. I forgot some supplies." He did so. Then, once he got back to his hallway, "Hey Joe, I'm back in my hallway now." An hour goes by, and wouldn't you know it, he had to use the bathroom. "Hey Joe, I need to use the bathroom." It's a number 2 in case you were wondering. Then he went to the bathroom. Upon completion of the subtask, he went back to the hallway and called again. "Hey Joe, I'm back in the hallway." At this point, Joe was getting annoyed, but he couldn't go back on his rule that he'd gone through so much trouble to enforce. Meanwhile, my brother's calls and mini reports became increasingly elaborate. He was no longer just calling to say when he left and came back, but to explain why he was leaving, how long he'd be gone, where he was going, etc. Joe eventually stopped picking up his phone, so my brother would just keep calling until he answered. My brother said he thinks he must have called his boss over 150 times during his 8-hour shift, each time leaving a very, very detailed report. With each report, his boss just replied something along the lines of, Okay, Chad. Okay, clearly just wanted to get off the phone. The next day, he came back to work and didn't make any calls. And Joe never bothered him or anyone else about calling to check in with him after that. I think it's a rule that management in any establishment are the dumbest people they could find for the job. And our second story. Curse of 1,000 sons over 1 hour extra pay. I started a new job at a right-away courier company. I hear that Karen is a masterful night shift logistics and dispatch operator, but some of the drivers don't like that she leaves them to work it out themselves. Darren is day shift operator and loves that rather than doing a handover, Karen will say, "Don't worry, I'll work it out," because this means he gets to leave her little puzzles to solve. My shift is nearing its end when I'm asked by Darren to do a delivery far north side of the city. I live an hour southwest of the city, so express concern about clocking off so far from home. He tells me he'll try and find something for me and to call on my way back. He gives me a big grin and says sometimes dispatch doesn't answer when we're really busy, so just keep calling. If you don't get through, then just stay on the clock until you either do or you get back to depot and are advised you can finish your shift. I took the hint and gave him a knowing nod. As I leave, I hear him saying to someone else, "Let's see if I can prepare something for Karen." Call me egotistical, but until the last word, I thought he was talking about me. I drove an hour up north and finished my deliveries. I updated my driver status, sent the proper messages that I was vacant and heading back to depot, then called the operator. No answer. Darren had told me to keep calling, and I figured if I didn't, I'd get in trouble for driving without a job. Even though it was standard to return to depot, any driver could have figured out that their shift was over, but we're supposed to wait until we're told we can go home. So I maliciously complied while making every effort to get through to dispatch. I realized that Karen was too busy to answer because Darren had left her a nice puzzle, and I smirked as I drove because Darren kind of was talking about me when I left. Still, I'd heard that Karen always solves the problem she's left, so I'm not worried for her. There's not much traffic heading back to the city at 5:20, so I'm making good time while pitying the cars deadlocked on the other side of the road. It should have cleared up going southwest by the time I get that far, an advantage to this extra hour of clocked time. I check my GPS and note that if I were to go directly home instead of stopping by the depot, I could save myself 2 minutes. Having nothing to gain from clocking off, I keep calling every 5 minutes as I head to the depot. I'm only 4 minutes from the depot when Karen finally picks up. "Hey, this is OP. I'm 4 minutes from depot. Is it too late to find a job going south or west?" "Who?" Karen asks, confused. She would have met with her night shift drivers but not checked the status of the day shift drivers on their final runs. "Driver number? Been trying to call you for an hour? You must be real busy." "Yeah, the day operators left me a mess." You could hear the pride in her voice. She was managing whatever Darren left her just fine. Returning to depot from north location right around the corner, Karen pauses a moment, then says, "Okay." It was said calm, even sweet. "Okay." But I felt the curse of 1,000 suns behind it. The only thing I could think of at the time was that she'd be so upset about me squeezing an extra hour's pay was that she must be a Karen. Still, I was only complying to policy, even if maliciously. I didn't want to leave it like that, so I offered, "I live southwest. Given things are busy, if you have any jobs that way, I might as well help." "That's okay. You can clock off now and head home." Not a trace of anger anymore. I only have pickups and they're in other areas. "Have a good one." I ended the call. I was actually a little confused that there were no south or west jobs. The ocean is east of the depot, so that's 2/3 of a huge area. It must be that Karen has set those jobs for later pickup times. Then I made sense. Drivers aren't sent jobs which might confuse them. E.g., if they might try to pick up things in the wrong order, say on the way to a drop-off, Darren had found pickup jobs for me and set them for reasonable pickup times. Reasonable for me. Karen must have sent all her drivers north into gridlock traffic in order to make all of the scheduled times. Meanwhile, I could have picked up every single one on my way back. Had she just recognized my existence or listened to the handover I'm certain Darren tried to give her. Karen could have started her night with a blank, but now she'd be swamped trying to make every delivery. Less drivers, and there's still a lot of night shift deliveries due to hospitals. I actually felt bad for her as I realized that it was Darren who was the real master of malicious compliance in this story, and I played the role of a pawn. Having complied with both my requests as well as Karen's, with some degree of malice on both ends, I imagine Karen will be wondering all night if there were simpler solutions to Darren's previous puzzles that she was so proud of solving. Solution? Not being such an arrogant POS. Listening to the other person in charge handing everything over to you and taking the time to pick up the phone. Honestly, she only really needed to pick 2 from that list and it would have made her night quite a bit easier. And our last story. HOA came in after I bought my home. I'm actually not a member of the HOA. I've received several notifications from the HOA about violations we are committing, yet we should not be a part of the HOA. Pretty much we bought our home in 2008 and were first on our block. Back in 2008, the housing market crashed and the company building in our subdivision went belly up, pulling out. For 3 years, we were the only house on our block. In 2011, a new company acquired the subdivision, which only had 12 occupied homes at the time, and brought the HOA with them. Now, because of the fact that the HOA came in after the 12 people who lived here purchased their homes, none of us joined. It was about 2014 when they finally finished building on our street. Until 2011, we were the only ones on our street. Until 2014, they only built homes that were already purchased on the block. Sometime last year, we started getting lots and lots of violation notices. I mean, dozens a month. They range from the times we put our trash out at night, the amount of cars we have, when we work on our cars, and my personal favorite, the swing set. We have 4 kids aged 18, 20, 4, and 6. Guess which ones caused me to get a vasectomy? I have a branded work truck, my car, my wife's old car that became my son's car, and my old car that's now my daughter's car. Basically, we have 2 in the garage, 2 in the driveway, and 1 on the street. Today, we received a notification that if we continue to park on the street in violation of the CC&Rs, we'll be towed. We are not part of the HOA. We've checked multiple times, and we've sent multiple notices to the HOA about the issue. We live outside city limits, and there are no county rules regarding any of this. One of the reasons we chose the neighborhood was because of the fact that there was no HOA and because it was out of city limits in the county. We had a lawyer send a letter to the HOA. We had 4 phone calls with the HOA. And finally, after the car was towed, we find out that the HOA subcontracted out the towing to another company. They then neglected to tell this company that the 13 homes not in the HOA are exempt. Despite not being a part of the HOA, the notifications persisted, and my car was towed due to the HOA subcontracting without clarifying exemptions for non-members. My lawyer filed a complaint against both the HOA and the towing company. In court, the judge recognized the violation of my rights and ruled in my favor. This outcome spared me from fines and towing fees and mandated the HOA to update records reflecting the exempt status of my property. Moral of the story, don't mess with homeowners who know their rights. HOA, you tried, but our heroes stand strong, exempt and unbothered. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.